Today, I'm going to share with you the top 5 beginner investing mistakes and how you can make sure you don't have the same mistakes that I did. Listen, you can learn for free from my expensive mistakes on today's episode of the How to Trade Stocks and Options podcast. This is the How to Trade Stocks and Options podcast, brought to you by 10MinuteStockTrader.com, where we cover finance, stocks, options, entrepreneurship, education, and money. And here's your host, voted one of the top 100 people in finance, Christopher Ewell. Today's episode is produced in partnership with FinClub.ai. Trade with confidence and leverage the power of artificial intelligence in your trading starting today. Go to FinClub.ai to get 2 free weeks of AI stock picks and save 15% when you use the code SAVE15. That's at FinClub.ai. Hey, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you'll be notified every time we give you more tools, tips, and tricks to help you trade faster and trade smarter every single week. Listen, before we get started, I got to tell you, I've done it all. Every mistake there is imaginable, I've done it. I have learned so many expensive lessons about how to trade and how to invest. And honestly, I want to cover several of those today to make sure you don't do the same. Now, granted, every mistake I made basically lost me money, which means that someone else on the other end made money. And you can be that person on the other end by doing the opposite of all of these things, right? Let's make sure you're focusing on the sound principles, the tactics that are going to make sure that you are the one taking advantage of the beginner mistakes that are out there that cost me a lot of money, that's for sure. So the first mistake is not investing at all. I mean, we're going to take a step back here out of our trading portfolio and just talk investing in general. If you aren't investing, then you're really losing out. And I don't mean that you're losing money because the stock's moving up or down, whatever. I mean, you've got dividends, you've got the movement of the stock, you can sell calls on your stock that you've got there. But the idea is that you're actually doing something with your money, whether it's in real estate, whether it's in businesses. Money wants to go to work. Board money sitting in accounts gets spent. And I mean, I know people personally that have gone through hundreds of thousands of dollars spending within a year or two. But they could have put that to work in an investment fund, in a mutual fund, in any kind of fund. The number one mistake that I've seen is people not investing. Now, if you've got a 401k, that's even better. You may have employer matching. And my friend Steve Burns talks about this in his personal finance book called The Working Dead. He's like, there is no better investment than an employer-sponsored 401k plan that has employer matching. Meaning, if you put in 5%, your employer puts in 5%, you just made a 100% return on that 5%. There's no better investment than that. So if you have that, you've got to take advantage of it, even if it's just a little bit to get started. Next is not having an emergency fund. Now, I definitely was guilty of this, especially, in my younger years. And I know that whenever you're first getting started out, like maybe you just graduated college, you've got a ton of student loan debt, you don't know where to go, you don't know what to do, and you certainly don't have any savings, the first thing to do is have an emergency fund. And it can be small. It can be like Dave Ramsey talks about when it's just $1,000. I mean, if you just put a few dollars back each week, before you know it, you're going to have that $1,000 emergency fund. And $1,000 is going to cover most of everything, right? Let's say your air conditioner goes out. You need new tires on your car. Your piston blows out of your car or something like that. $1,000 may not cover all of it, but it will sure go a long way. So before you do any kind of investing, invest in yourself by having that emergency fund, because you don't want to go into debt every time you turn around, right? Every time you need a new tire, or every time the water heater goes out or something. Having that $1,000, just $1,000, is going to make a world of difference to you and open up a lot of freedom that you wouldn't have had otherwise. And when it comes to investing, a lot of people talk about compound interest, right? I think Benjamin Franklin said compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. And it really is the difference in going from a few dollars in your investment account to millions of dollars in your investment account is the compound interest there, right? I mean, take for example the old adage of doubling a penny, right? You double a penny every day for 30 days, you wouldn't think it would be all that much. You're like, okay, start with a penny, then 2 pennies, then 4 pennies, then 8 pennies, then 16 pennies, then 32 pennies, then 64 pennies, and finally $1.28, right? Well, by the 30th day, you're talking in the millions of dollars. And that's because it's compounding. And that's why you've got to start early, because the big money comes at the end when you're compounding big sums. It doesn't feel like much at the beginning. It doesn't feel like much if you're only investing $100 now. But when you're taking that $100, you've rolled it year after year after year, you're compounding it, you're growing it. That $100 turns into $100,000. And that $100,000 can turn to 120, 190, 200,000, whatever the case is. But you've got to have something to start with first off. And then second, you've got to start doing it, and you've got to start doing it now. The sooner you start making those investments, the sooner the compounding interest will work for you. And also, people are afraid to make the trade, right? They're afraid, at least in my world, right? You know, they're doing all this analysis. They feel very strongly that maybe a certain stock is going to go up. Maybe the stock recently has collapsed because of coronavirus or whatever the case is. Being afraid to take the trade then, that's when you've got another mistake on your hands. You've got to be ready to go. You've got to, last week we talked about having that watch list. When it hits your criteria of the watch list and you're ready to invest, that's when it's time to go. But waiting too long or being afraid to make the trade kind of go hand in hand to me. If you're afraid to make the trade because you're going to lose money, you're definitely not going to gain money. And you're definitely not going to be making that compound interest that you want to make. So don't wait too long. Get started today. Hey, listen, tell me some of the mistakes you've made down in the comments below. And listen, I know that it can be super hard to share the mistakes you've made. I actually went and publicly did a podcast called the Worst Investment Ever podcast, which was not a lot of fun, honestly. I thought it would be more interesting to do and kind of just, get it off my chest. But no, it kind of hurt like a lot. And basically the moral of the story was that I saw what was happening and I didn't do anything about it. And it led me to lose so much money. I mean, obviously I learned a ton of lessons from it, but I lost so much money. So in the comments below, share with me some of your mistakes that you've made, but also share with me the lessons that you've learned, because that's really what matters. If you repeat the same actions to get the same results, you're insane. But if you have those same actions or same circumstances and you take different actions and you have a better result, you've learned from it and you've gotten better. So point number 4 goes to what I was just talking about when I'm asking you to leave a comment down below, and it's putting too much money in one investment and losing it all. Yeah, I've been there. There's some give and take on this, right? You've got to be concentrated in a stock or something that's actually moving to make money. But you also need to be diversified in the way that if it does turn against you, you're not wiped out all in one spot. So it's kind of a blend between the two. Like for me, I personally, you can do whatever you want, but I put 15% of my portfolio in a single trade. And that's where I start from. That's my baseline. I may add to it, I may take away from it, but I'm starting with 15%. That gives me 7 or 8 trades where I can basically build up my entire portfolio. And I may have some that are long positions and short positions and bonds and in gold or long stocks and short a particular one stock. But you've got to not put everything in one place, but also diversifying across too many assets. Putting 1% in 100 different places may sound better, but they're not all moving in the direction that you want. And you certainly aren't being able to watch 100 positions like you could 15 positions. And those 15 positions, you can know if they're performing in the way that you want to be in, or if they're not performing in the way that you want. And you can get out and move on to something else. So that's definitely number 4, is that's putting too much money all in one place. And then finally, the number 5 thing, and honestly, the most important thing that you could do is find a mentor. Now, I know you're like, well, that's not what I expected to hear you say, Chris, but it is what you need to know. Whether you want to go into real estate investing, whether you want to go into stock trading, whether you want to go into buying businesses or flipping houses or whatever, you need to find somebody who's been there before and can show you the ropes. Whether it's a podcast like this one, I've got 300 episodes. It doesn't have to be a sales pitch to come and join my service, but I definitely have 300 plus episodes for you to go and review. And by doing so, you can learn along the way. I can be your virtual mentor for that. And I still have mentors, right? I've been trading since 2009, but I still call up my friend Steve Burns and I say, hey, Steve, what about this? And he's like, well, let me tell you about it. I love Steve. He's great. But at no point will I ever say that I know enough to no longer have a mentor. I mean, daily I'm reading books about trading and investing and making the podcast bigger and growing my businesses and things like that. So I'm always on top of learning. And you can do it virtually. You can do it through YouTube videos, through books, whatever. Tim Ferriss has a quote that says, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." So stop for a second and think about, are you around these negative people that aren't helping you? Or are you around people that are moving you in the direction that you want? Moving you by sharing their expertise, their passions, right? You don't want to go to, your grandma who doesn't know anything about poetry if you want to become a poet. You would go and find a poet society or something like that. I mean, the examples are endless. But the point is that you've got to go to someone who knows what they're talking about, who's been there before and has learned the lessons. And in my case, lots of expensive lessons. I mean, that's kind of some of the reasons why I lost a lot of money is because I didn't want to have a mentor. I didn't want to have a support system. I wanted to do it all on my own. And I learned that being all on your own isn't always a great thing. It really helps to have a team. And that team can be people that you know, or it could just be some great books that are going to give you insights to help move you forward. I heard somebody say one time that a book is like a decade in a day, because somebody took their life's work and put it in a book for you so that you don't have to go and learn all these lessons. All you have to do is read it and implement it. I've written a short guide on how you can use the triple stock profit system. It's the secret weapon every investor needs right now to change your financial future. And you can get it for free by visiting triplestockprofits.com or in the links below. Also, if you want to join a community of traders just like you can get free access to the elite membership that has even more resources to help you trade faster and trade smarter. So listen, I hope that I gave you some motivation to start making some changes in your own life. And honestly, if you're making these mistakes right now, it is totally okay, because I've done it too. Every single one of these, I've done it. And I don't want you to repeat those same mistakes. So do me a favor, don't make this mistake. Make sure you subscribe and hit the like button and enable notifications. That way you never miss any of the tools, tips, and tricks that we upload every single week to help you trade faster and trade smarter. And I'll see you on the next episode.